On this week's episode of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast, it is part one of the 2025 Southwest Conference Hall of Fame Luncheon. This week, you'll have the chance to hear from Arkansas basketball's U.S. Reed, Baylor Football's Neill and Jeffrey Rice tennis standout Wendy Wood Yang, and SMU swimmer Ryan Berube.
We'll be right back to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast after this message from our sponsors.
This episode is presented by the Hampton Inn Waco. When you come to Waco, be sure to stay at the Hampton Inn Waco. Located just a short distance from the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, you'll start your day off with a delicious complimentary breakfast, and you'll also enjoy the Hampton Inn's free Wi-Fi, fitness center, and pool. Next time you suit up and bring your team to Waco, make the Hampton Inn Waco your home base on the road.
Now back to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast.
So our first inductee today is from the University of Arkansas. He was a standout basketball player from 1978 to 1981. Please welcome U.S. Reed. Now, Reed was instrumental in the Razorbacks' 3 Southwest Conference championships and a Final Four appearance in 1978. In 1980, he led the Hogs in scoring, in field goal percentage, and free throw shooting. But without question, he made his mark in 1981 in the second round of the NCAA tournament when Arkansas, trailing defending national champion Louisville by 1 point, with 6 seconds to go, and this happened in Austin. How ironic was that? Now check out what happened on the big screen. William, go ahead and roll this. 6 seconds to go, down by 1. That's a high five. Look at the celebration. Wow. And back then they didn't have a 3-point shot line. So it was a 2-pointer to win by 1 point. And Louisville was the defending national champion, eliminated in the second round. U.S., have a seat. We're going to talk a little bit now. That's probably the signature moment in Razorback basketball history. Sports Illustrated called it the second most historic event ever in March Madness. So, U.S. Reed, the 14th Arkansas basketball player to make it into the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame, the 74th Razorback overall, and U.S., I'm guessing you've seen that play a few times.
I've seen that shot a couple of times. People, you'd be surprised. People ask me about that shot, but I like my wife to stand. Marilyn, will you stand? Believe it or not, people ask me, how did I marry her? More than the shot.
So that shot was your second best achievement.
That's my first big miracle. There you go. And I also like my grands and kids to stand, please. They came support me. But yeah, a few times people ask me about, they say, was that luck? I said, well, nothing's luck. You know, we practice. We practice these things. Matter of fact, I don't know if you heard the story. In warm-ups, I was shooting, you know, I used to do pregame shooting, and some of my teammates were saying, why are you shooting so far out? And I said, well, you never know, I might have to shoot a long shot.
You knew.
I don't know, I didn't know. The good Lord put that, I guess, in my mind, but I was shooting long shots. I knew I had to push it and shoot it at the same time, kind of like what Steph Curry does now. And so I'm glad I was practicing those shots, and I give God the glory for that shot.
And you'd expect after that shot, you'd get buried under a huddle of players, but that's not what happened. What'd you do?
Well, believe it or not, Coach Sutton had gave me the ball in another game. We played Texas in Fayetteville, and I hit a last-second shot to win that game, but it wasn't that far out. But I remember hitting that shot, and people just jumping all over you, and you're at the bottom of the pile, and you can't breathe. So I knew the next time I do that again, I said, I'm gonna run out the arena. So I ran down the press row, shaking the press's hands, and I ran around and ran to the dressing room.
That may have been the first time ever a player shook hands with the media after a big shot like that.
I was not on the bottom of that pile.
Okay. And then in the locker room, you guys had a special guest after that great shot.
Yes, some people may remember Arkansas and Texas are huge rivals back in those days. I mean, Texas hated Arkansas, we hated Texas. And after I hit the shot, and we all ran in the dressing room, there was a little old guy with a hog hat on, and I look up and it's Abe Lemons.
You were in Austin,
the University of Texas coach.
Yeah.
So that was with a cigar. I gotta add that. He smoked those cigars.
Yeah.
So we saw him in the dressing room. We knew it was a big celebration when we saw him.
Well, and then you were drafted in the 5th round. Sometimes sports is filled with irony, right? Drafted in the 5th round, the NBA draft, but you signed with a CBA team, and it was the Louisville Catbirds. And so Louisville again, but you didn't end up not playing with them. What happened?
That was the second team I played with, but went to Louisville to play, and every time I'd go to practice and we have scrimmage games, the fans would boo me because those Louisville fans don't forget. So they said, "You're not gonna be able to play for us." I said, "Well, I don't think I want to."
A short stint in
Louisville. Really.
Okay. Well, in 1979, you were a 6'2" guard with the Razorbacks. You led the team in blocked shots for the year with 30. 6'2" guard leading block shots. What, did you have a secret technique or what?
Well, I lived next to a college when I was growing up. And so in junior high, I used to go over and play with the college players, iron sharpens iron. So when you play against these guys that are bigger and taller than you, it helps your jumping, it helps your shooting, it helps your whole game. So I developed like a 45-inch vertical. So
that's good.
Yeah, so whenever somebody came in, they would see this little skinny toothpick jump up and block shots. So, because I was like 180 pounds, So yeah, I had a knack for blocking shots playing with those big guys.
Did Eddie Sutton ever consider putting you in the paint? You jump like that?
No, we had 7-footers and 6'11" people to go in there.
All right. So, speaking of Eddie Sutton, what's the biggest thing you learned playing for him?
Well, the biggest thing I learned when I first entered the Razorbacks basketball team, he had 3 things that we would wear on our jerseys: defense, dedication, and discipline. And as a young athlete, we were thinking, no, this is just for sports, but we learned later that, we apply all those things, like discipline, being perseverance and everything, and defense, any attack you get in life, you have to defend yourself against it. And so dedication, being dedicated to a purpose in life. So those 3 things stood out the most of all of us from those things that he gave us.
Do you have one favorite Eddie Sutton story you'd like to share with our guest today?
Well, when I first came to the Razorbacks, Eddie Sutton had straight hair, kind of like yours. And so when I started playing, I had one of those curly afros when I first got there, and he would kind of notice in practice, and next time we look up, he's coming to practice with a perm. So he had this black curly afro, and everybody used to kid him all the time. So you want hair like US, don't you? And he just drop his head. So that's one of the fondest memories I have of Eddie Sutton.
US, tell us something about yourself that the people here in the audience don't know.
Well, most people don't know that I get the name from US, but US is not my real name. It's really UC, Ulysses Cleon. And I was adopted from birth by a physician in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And his name was U.S. Reed, Dr. U.S. Reed. So everywhere I go, I look just like him. And so they would call me U.S. Junior. So that's where the name U.S. came from.
What do you like better, U.S. or U.C.?
Well, UC, the C stands for Cleon, and it's too close to Klingon, like Star Trek. So I didn't like that.
All All right. US, what does it mean to you being inducted into the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame?
I mean, when they called me, I was so shocked because, you know, I played with some great players, the triplets, Sidney Moncrief, Ron Brewer, Marvin Duff, and I know those guys are in this hall. As a high school player, you dream of playing with the guys like that. But to be named on the same stage as those guys, it really was a great honor.
Well,
And I want to thank you, and I thank the hall for even thinking of me and my family for having this big honor.
US, a job well done.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, US Reed for the University of Arkansas. Congratulations. Now, you don't want to forget that ring. And we had it sized for him, so there you go. All right, our next inductees, you got a little tease on this from Tom earlier, represent Baylor University. Please welcome Neill and Jeffrey. And we're going to have Jay come up first and get his ring and his medallion, and then Neill following him, and then both of you can come up and sit down. Now, it is the first time ever that we're inducting two siblings simultaneously. Of course, Neill and Jay were both quarterbacks for the Bears. Neill led Baylor to its first Southwest Conference title in 50 years in the 1974 season. In 3 years under center, he threw for more than 4,200 yards and 25 touchdowns. He led the team to its iconic Miracle on the Brazos win. Coach Taft, you remember that? Over Texas in a matchup with Penn State in the Cotton Bowl. And then Jeffrey came to Baylor 6 years later, leading the Bears in 1980 to a school record 10 wins, the program's second Southwest Conference title in 7 years, a number 6 ranking in the nation, and a Cotton Bowl matchup with Alabama. That was the year of that unbelievable comeback against TCU. Jeffrey was all Southwest Conference and amassed a 2-year total of 2,700 yards passing. Gentlemen, welcome and congratulations. So, questions for both of you, and this should be interesting. But first of all, how does it feel making history, being inducted into the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame together? Let's see who talks first.
Well, it's an honor of a lifetime, and it's an honor, but it's not about me. I mean, the fact is I was a quarterback of one of the greatest teams in Baylor history. And so it's about my team, it's about our teammates, it's about the Southwest Conference Championship. And even in a bigger scope than that, it's about my family, my friends, my beautiful wife for 44 years.
You guys hold the mic up close to me.
And we have five kids and 5 grandchildren, and they're here today. But it's about friends and family, coworkers, and people you have business with. You go through this life, and the fact is, there's a Savior that loves each one of us personally. But it's an honor to go in together, and it's an honor even more so to go in with my hero, my brother Neill.
Well, I am truly honored and humbled and just so thankful. And I'm thankful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who came into my life when I was a sophomore in high school and changed my life, changed the direction of my life. I'm thankful to be a Jeffrey. I mean, we had great parents, mom and dad. My dad, our dad, played at Baylor as well. He was an all-Southwest Conference running back at Baylor in 49 and 50. So great family. My siblings are here. Of course, Jay's here. John, my brother, Jan, and their families are here. So proud of them. Proud of. I'm actually a stutterer, and all that means is that I stutter. And I'm thankful for my wife. Sheila, who I met here at Baylor on a blind date, and she happened to be a speech therapist major. And I'm married a speech therapist. We've been married almost 50 years. I'm thankful for her and her just doing life, this journey with her all these years. My 3 kids are here, and the spouses were wonderful. 12 grandkids are all right there, which I'm so thankful for all of them and who they are. But, and I'm thankful for Baylor, who gave me a chance. Thankful for Coach Taft, who let us stutter, be his quarterback all those years, which is grateful. Donnell, his wife, he's precious. But my dad, when I was, he was a goal setter, had us set goals. And so, as a freshman in high school, my goals were, I wanted to go to Baylor University. We were raised Baylor Bears, I love Baylor. Always wanted to go there. Wanted to be the starting quarterback at Baylor. I wanted to win a conference, a championship, which we hadn't done since 1924. I wanted to be all conference and had some other things as well. Well, I get to Baylor, and of course we did all that. We won the first conference championship in 50 years at Baylor. I was the all-conference quarterback at that team, and all of that happened, which is just incredible. I'm so thankful for it, so honored to be here. But then my brother comes to Baylor as well 6 years later, and Jay had to start quarterback. Jay leads him to a conference championship, and Jay ends up being first team all conference quarterback, just as I was. And then here to be here and being inducted with my brother is just the moment of a lifetime. We always competed. I mean, as athletes, because I was 6 years older, so I was always bigger and better in those days, back then. But when I was 60 years old, I sat down with Jay and looked him in the eye and said, Jay, after all these years, I want you to know that you were a better athlete than me, and you were a better quarterback than me. And he looked at me and said, I've always known that. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be inducted in the South College Hall of Fame.
Great. All right. Well, Jay, not exactly following in your dad's or your brother's footsteps, you initially went to Missouri for 2 years. What was the deal with that?
I did. We grew up in Overland Park, Kansas. My father was the executive director of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so I was heavily recruited in the Big 8 at the time, and I went to Missouri University for 2 years. And was the backup quarterback, and I felt like I'd won the job twice. And so Coach Taft found out that I was looking to transfer, and he called me and he told me, Jay, you're welcome to come to Baylor. But back then it was a big decision to transfer because you only had 4 years of eligibility, and you couldn't go. You had to sit out a year, and so you had to take advantage of your years. And he said, Jay, you're welcome to transfer here, but you're going to be the 6th or 7th quarterback when you get here. And I said, Coach, I have no problem with that because I'll win the job. What I want you to do is I want you to tell me when I win the job that you're going to start me, because I won the job in Missouri and they didn't play me. You give me your word that when I win the job, and the rest is history, and Coach Taft is true to his word, and so that's why I came to Baylor.
Great story. All right, great. Well, guys, I want you to think about one game you remember most in your Baylor careers. And Neill, we'll start with you. Tell us which one that was.
Well, of course, it has to be the miracle of the Brazos in 1974 when we beat Texas and hadn't beaten them in 17 years. And I was raised a Baylor fan, so I always had a dislike for the University of Texas. They beat us. They had won 6 conference championships in a row from 67 to 73. So my dreams play at Baylor, play against Texas. Of course, we scored first in that game, went up 7-0, and then Texas scores the next 3 times they get the ball. And it kicked a field goal. Now it's 24-7 at halftime. And of course, our fans are leaving the stadium with 1,000. They're all going. But we end up in the second half. We block a punt. We go in. We score. We shut them down. They didn't score to the point. We ended up scoring 27 unanswered points. We ended up winning that game, 34-24. it's still to this day, it's the greatest comeback victory in the history of Earth. It's still known now. Coach Taft, it's known as the miracle on the Brazos. Coach Taft never liked that because he always said, hey, it wasn't a miracle. We beat the University of Texas. But it's still known as the miracle on the Brazos. And I was honored just to be there on a great team, great coaches, and great athletes. What I love about those guys, they're better men. And I'm proud of that team and those guys.
All right, Jay, he said that game was the best comeback on earth. You had a pretty good comeback game you remember, too.
We did. We were playing SMU, and it was at Baylor Stadium in Waco, and we were playing SMU. We were both undefeated, and that was the day Dickerson and James were the running backs at SMU, and they went up on us 14-0, and then our quarterback threw an interception for a touchdown, and to make it 21-0. And so that was the last play of the first quarter. And so I went to the sideline, and at some point I was standing next to Taft, and we tell it differently. Coach Taft says he found me, and I said I found him, and I'm not really sure what happened. I just know he was talking a lot. It didn't seem to make him very happy. But I said at some point, I said, Coach, are you going to take me out? And he did a typical Grant Taft thing. He asked a question, like my wife. Ask a question, you get 3 back. And Coach Taft said, what do you think I should do? And I said, Coach, you leave me in, we'll win this game. You take me out, there's nothing I can do about it. And then Coach Taft did another Coach Taft thing, true story. He said, Jay, I believe that you believe that. And he turned and started to walk away. And then he stopped and turned back and said, Jay, you're my quarterback. And we got the ball, and that's not even the most amazing thing about the story. So now we're down 21-0. First play of the second quarter, we get the ball on the 20-yard line. 3 plays later, it's 4th and 1 on our own 29-yard line. 4th and 1 on our own 29-yard line. We're behind 21-0, and Taft decides to go for it. We go for it, 4th and 1 on our own 29. We don't get it. They put the game away right then. Well, we give the ball. We go for it. Coach Taft says we're going for it. We give the ball to Walter Abercrombie, and of course Walter always gets it. Walter gets the first down. We go down and score, make it 21-14 at half, and we end up winning 32-28 in one of the great comebacks. But that was a defining moment of a football team. But that's what winners do, and that's what champions do. They win. And our guys knew how to win. And, we can talk about who SMU had, but we had Walter Abercrombie and Dennis Gentry and Mike Singletary and Frank Ditta, and you can go on Van McElroy. You can go down the list of the studs that we had. But that was a big defining moment of our team, the team of champions.
All right, guys, one last question. I know you got a favorite story about each other. So I'm going to ask you, Neill, what's your favorite story about Jay?
I've already told it, really, about just how cocky he is. And he's just confident. And he knows he's better than you. And he knows you know he's better than you. But he is just one of the finest guys. I got another brother, John, who I love very much, and Jan, my sister. But Jay is just as good an athlete as I've known, as fine a man. But he's a better man, a better Christian, a better father, all of that. And that's what I'm proud of him. I'm proud of my family. And, all this stuff is wonderful. But the greatest thing in my life is my faith in a great God who loves me, who loves all of us. And then just my wonderful family. And I'm blessed. But Jay's been a big part of my life.
Good. All right, Jay, and I know we talked twice yesterday. You called me back after I called you and said, I know what Neill's story I'm going to tell. Go ahead.
I do. And so go back to 1974, and ABC did the college football games, and literally they did 14 college football games a year. I mean, that was, they do that on a Thursday night now. And so when Neill was at Baylor, I only got to see him play 3 times. That was because I was playing football in junior high and high school. So in 74, they're playing Texas. It's a big game, but we don't get radio in Kansas City. They don't broadcast it. It's not on TV. So me and a bunch of friends are at our house. We weren't supposed to be there, so don't tell my folks. But we're at our house watching, because everybody else is down at the game watching Neill play. And we get an update on there, and it's 24/7 at half. And we're like, oh no. And then we continue to watch the game of the week, because the only thing we did all week is watch that game of the week. And then all of a sudden, on national TV, they cut to it, and they show Neill Jeffrey running a bootleg in the rain and getting to the corner of the end zone. And it took him a long time to get there. But he got in there, and of course, we went crazy. And that was an unbelievable moment in memory of my brother. But what's crazy about Neill is go move forward in time, and I am talking to Neill about some struggle I've had in life, and I've had a lot of them, and I'm sure I've got more to come. But in those conversations, Neill would stop and say, Jay, that's why we need a Savior. And when you look at life and you figure out who you're going through life with and what it is you're doing, you want to surround yourself with the right people, and luckily, I get to do it with my hero, best friend, my brother Neill.
Guys, you're a credit to your school, to your community, and to the Southwest Conference. Job well done, and congratulations. Neill and Jeffrey. Yep. Our next inductee is from the University of Houston, tennis player Margaret Kitchen Redfern, who played from 1982 to 1985. And I direct your attention to the big screen. In 1983, she won the Southwest Conference Championship in both singles and doubles and was named the Conference Player of the Year. The next year, she was a 1984 All-American in both events. She still owns the school record with 153 singles victories. Margaret learned last week that she could not travel to be here today to join us, but she sent a message apologizing, saying she's thankful to receive the Hall of Fame honor and the ring, and she congratulated all the other inductees as well, and said it is truly an honor for both her and her sport. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause from the University of Houston, Margaret Kitchen Redfern. All right, our next inductee, the new Southwest Conference Hall of Fame member, is another tennis player, Wendy Wood Yang from Rice University. Come on up, Wendy. Wendy starred for the Owls in 1984 through 1986 as a two-time All-American in both singles and doubles. She was also the Southwest Conference Player of the Year twice in 1985 and 1986, capturing multiple Southwest Conference championships in her 3 years in Houston. Now, following her collegiate career, she played professionally, including at Wimbledon, the French Open, and the Australian Open, and achieved a world ranking of number 185. Welcome, please, Wendy Wood Yang. So, Wendy, you were from Massachusetts. How'd you end up at Rice?
Well, am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah, it's a long story, but culture shock for sure. I was recruited and looked at a lot of different schools and came down and visited Rice, and that man right there, Paul Blankenship, as well as a lot of the women at that table, you know, there was something special. You feel it when you're on campus, when you're in the right place for you. And yeah, so I went to Rice. I did not know what a Texas bluebonnet was, or what okra was, or chicken fried steak. But it was the right place for me, for sure.
It grew on you, didn't it?
It grew on me, yes.
Yeah. Now, was tennis always your main sport, or did you excel in other sports too?
Tennis was my main sport. But I still like to play sports.
Probably pickleball and some of that too,
We
right?
played a little pickleball yesterday.
Well, you had some pretty good family genes in your sports. Wendy's father is Wilbur Wood, the former Major League pitcher, 17-year Major League pitcher, and he owned a couple of records. He pitched on 2 days rest one year because he was a knuckleball pitcher. He had 49 starts in 1972. That's a lot, Coach Mitch, isn't it? In 1 year, 49 starts, and in 1973, he was 24-20. He was the first pitcher since Walter Johnson in 2016 to win and lose 20 games in the same season. He finished 24-20. So he had stamina. Did you pick up some of that stamina from your dad?
Well, my dad is still alive. He lives in Bedford, Massachusetts. He can't travel anymore, but my dad was a tremendous athlete. He played baseball, he played football, he played hockey, and many people would say he could have had a professional career in any of those sports. And he loved to compete, and he did have stamina. He had real stamina, and yeah, I mean, he took great joy from performing and competing. But I think, you know, I learned a lot from watching him. I mean, he didn't know much about tennis, but he knew how to compete. And I remember distinctly as a kid in the kitchen in Chicago, one morning after a game that he had lost, and I remember hearing him talk to my mother and tell my mother, you know, I threw the ball well last night. I just made a couple bad pitches at the wrong time, but you know, I feel good. I threw the ball well. And it really, to this day, it left an impression on me that, you know, you learn from your losses, but you don't become defeated by them, right? And just that sort of confidence and that attitude is of resilience and keeping perspective. Yeah, definitely learned that from my dad. And I also learned from him, you know, as a junior tennis player, you might be in any sport, right? You might be winning kind of handily, and you just kind of think, oh, this is done, I got this. And then I would sort of have a walkabout, and I might sort of lose my focus, and my dad, you know, was watching me play and watching me improve, and he's like, you know, Wendy, when you like get close to the finish line, you have got to focus even more and become even more intentional, and really you've got to close it out and put them out of their misery and get across the finish line. I've learned a lot from my dad, but yes, he was a heck of a competitor.
So you were a closer then, weren't you?
I tried to be, yeah.
So, well, you played the first ever match on the new center court at the Australian Open, now known as Rod Laver Arena. That's a big deal in Australia. What do you remember about that? Was it nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. There was a big ceremony to open because it was the first match. I was playing Diane Fromholtz, who was sort of the most highly ranked Australian player. She had been number 3 in the world at one point. She was past her prime, but she was still the 16th seed. And there was a lot of fanfare. It was very windy. And in a big center court like that, the wind swirls, so you couldn't really get a pattern with the wind. Yeah, it was really nerve-wracking. And it wasn't a pretty match. It was a messy, dirty match. But, you know, you just find a way to win, and I was able to do that day.
You defeated her, you upset her.
I did.
Yeah.
You didn't know that, Bruce?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I looked really deep into Google and I couldn't find that, so.
I will say the most nerve-wracking thing that day may have been that Stefan Edberg, who at the time I believe was the #1 ranked male player in the world, was playing on that court, maybe directly following me, and so he kept kind of coming out the player's entrance to check on the score, and that probably made me more nervous than anything, if I'm truthful.
He was a cute #1 ranked player, right?
You thought so?
Yeah. No, I didn't think so. I can just tell by the look in your eyes.
Yes, Stefan was very handsome.
Okay, all right. So, what do you remember most about your tennis career at Rice?
These people, Paul Blankenship at this table and his wife Chris, who was a swim coach at Rice, Sandra Tilden, who was my Rice roommate and basketball player, and the women and men at that table there, Juana Hadnot, Tamara Ray, Clancy, Susan Rudd, Jackie, Paula, Elizabeth, who's the current coach, Liz, Hollis, and Bob. I mean, the wins and losses as you go on in life, your win-loss record sort of fades, but the friendships and the relationships and the times that you have together, I mean, that is what college athletics is all about, no doubt.
Well, you also excelled in the classroom and went on to Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. Then you held senior level positions with a number of sports related companies, including Timberland and Reebok and New Balance. And then as the president of brand management for Hoka Footwear, you led them to an increase from $60 million a year to $1 billion a year in revenue. How about that? What did tennis teach you that helped you in your professional career?
Yeah, I mean, sports just translates, right? The lessons that you learn that we talked about and the other guys have spoken about, the discipline, the relentlessness, the dedication. But, the biggest thing is you put a team together where you have people that really want to win, and that you build a culture where those same people will run through a brick wall for each other. And Paul used to talk about that. We'll run through a brick wall. And when you get a group of people and you feel that way about one another, you can just achieve great things. And that I'm very proud of the work that my team and I did at Hoka, in the not too long ago time. It was a great kind of capstone to my career. So yeah, I mean, every day you draw on these lessons.
Incredible success, and kudos to you. What does being inducted into the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame mean to you, Wendy?
Well, like all the other inductees, it just means so much. This is a huge, huge honor, and coming in and walking through these halls, it's really special to be part of this. And for me, honestly, my husband, John, and my daughters, Haley, Hannah, and Sarah, they're getting a glimpse into, this collegiate life that I I didn't know you had that picture. They're getting a glimpse into this life that, is just very special and has had made such a big impact in my life. And that means just so much.
Congratulations. It's a well-earned award. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Brendan, for sharing Wendy with us, and congratulations to you. Wendy Wood Yang, Southwest Conference Hall of Fame. And I just noticed one of the Jeffrey brothers left his ring up here. Fumble. Here we go. Wouldn't want you to go home, and it's a beautiful ring. Wouldn't want you to go home without it. All right, Jay. All right. And Coach, what a testimony to you convincing Wendy and coaching her to do what she did. That's great. Yeah. Well, our next inductee is from Southern Methodist University. He competed as a swimmer for the Mustangs from 1993 to 1996. Please welcome Ryan Berube. In 1996, Ryan was the NCAA Swimmer of the Year. And what a year he had. He captured 3 individual national titles in the 200-yard individual medley, the 100-yard backstroke, and the 200-yard backstroke. He also, on top of being NCAA Player of the Year, he anchored the men's 4x200 meter freestyle relay in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. And you should watch that video. He pulled away in the last 2 lengths to win a gold medal going away. So a gold medal winner for America in America in 1996. And during his time at SMU, Berube was a 6-time Southwest Conference champion and earned All-American honors 26 times. He is in the SMU Athletics Hall of Fame, the Texas Swimming and Diving Hall of Fame. He is now the 4th SMU swimmer to be inducted into the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame. Welcome and congratulations. So Ryan, you were recruited out of Florida by UCLA, SMU, Stanford, and Texas, all big, huge, successful swimming programs.
It's good research, Bruce.
Yeah, good reason. Okay. Why SMU?
Well, so many reasons to that. At the end of the day, it came down to Texas and SMU, and a couple of things happened, but SMU always told me that I was their number one person, and they wanted me. And from the get-go, from the very first time that we had conversations, and at the end of it, I think Texas had options, and it was very late in the recruiting process, and Eddie Reese just didn't come through with that kind of convincing, we really want you. And so it was obvious to me, and it was one of those things where it was like, the skies opened and the sun shone down, and the answer was obvious. It probably is the answer for all of us here in our athletic careers, right? As we're making decisions, at some point they think it's so tough. You think it's tough, and it is in that process. But at the very end, it's almost easy. So
Never looked back from there.
no, I didn't, and I constantly reminded Eddie Reese that he made the wrong choice. Yes. And he would tell you the same thing if he was sitting here today.
Well, that was a long list of accomplishments we talked about. 26 All-Americans, the gold medal, Swimmer of the Year. Which one of those means the most to you?
You know, it's funny, the Olympic gold medal is what people remember the most because it's actually something that you can keep around your neck, and you have this physical example of what 17 years in the pool and that commitment looks like. It's interesting. But the truth of it was the time that we spent together, like Wendy said, with our teammates. I have one here, Dan Hedges, with me today, and who you know, they put in all the time, right? Wendy, they showed up in the mornings, they showed up in the afternoons. They were the ones, fellas, who like showed up and pushed you, and you were showing up that day because you know they were showing up, and if you let them down, right, there couldn't be anything worse than letting your teammates down. So it was really that moment, and so and the result for us was my senior year. We were in the lead on the very last relay of the very last day of the NCAA championships at the 375-yard mark. Unfortunately, not at the 400. We were end up second, but that silver medal at the NCAA championships, my senior year, is probably the high point for me in my career.
And this would be a good point. You said you've got a teammate here, and also your family. You want to tell us who you got here with you today?
Yeah, so I have my beautiful wife, Michelle, and my son, Rush, and my mother-in-law, Lana. My older son, Jack, is swimming in California at the moment at a meet. And, you know, actually these people represent, you know, as always in your life, so many important things. But the interesting part was that Michelle and I were dating all through college, and so my mother-in-law like put up with a lot of swimmers and fed a lot of swimmers over my time in college. So it's really fun for me to have her here witnessing all of this because she was there from the very beginning of the ride at SMU.
You have a good story from Atlanta at the Olympics because it was in the United States, and everybody told you, hey, this is going to be really, but it kind of hit you when you first got there and started, right? 15,000 people.
Well, the Olympics were crazy in and of their own right, but I mean, you show up in the village and you get you know all the clothes, and they go through outfitting, and then they quickly sweep you out because the village is complete just manic energy, right? You get 10,000 of the world's best athletes, and they're all stuck together in one place, and it's crazy. And so we got out, and then so we went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and swam at a camp there. And the very last day, they said to us, like, listen, there's going to be some people coming out to watch you train. And I thought, well, that's odd. Why would anybody want to watch a bunch of swimmers just kind of warm up and prepare? And we showed up, and there were 3,000 or 4,000 people in the stands. And it was at that moment that I think all of us on the team, all 44 of us, realized, like, hey, it's been fun and games, and it's been great. We've been living this, you know, charmed little life for a few weeks, but 4,000 people just came out to watch us practice because they're just so excited in these expectations. And And that was the first moment, like the weight of being the Olympian and the expectations kind of came down upon us. And then I think what you're referencing is I walked out for the morning swim in my race. I only swam one race in Atlanta. The 800 freestyle relay, the 4x2, and I swam in the morning, and I led off in the morning, and then at night I anchored. But that morning I walked out, and all the other coaches and trainers, they got people, they're like, listen, go down on the deck and look at what 15,000 people, just look around. I'm like, it's fine. I've been Pan American Games and World University Games and NCAA championships, that'll be great. Well, I was wrong. Because when they announced, lane 4, United States of America, and you're supposed to go out and wave, right, at the crowd. Well, you're only looking at one side because that's where all the spectators are on one side of the pool in Atlanta, and all 15,000, actually probably 14,400 of them all took a picture as we waved at the crowd. And in that moment, I realized nobody cared about who was in lane 6 or who was in lane 3. They really were just looking at lane 4. And that moment where my stomach just kind of went right up into my throat, and the adrenaline rush hit, and I couldn't feel my face, and I couldn't feel my hands. And then I was up on the blocks, and I think I took 3 breaths the first quarter of the race. Was quite funny. So there's a lot on your plate at those moments.
And you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't know you were going to swim the anchor leg until a couple hours before the race, is that right?
No, you literally didn't know until about 4:30 in the afternoon. You took your nap, you showed up at the team event, and they said, all right, here's who's in what lane and in what heat, and they came to the relay, and my name got mentioned last. And at that moment, I realized I was swimming. So nobody knew. That was 96. There was the very beginning of cell phones, so it wasn't like I could tell my family. And Michelle and Lana were there in the stands as well as my parents and a bunch of friends. And so they had no idea. So they're sitting there in the stands watching us warm up, and I was in the water. And I'm like, ooh, he might be swimming. And then we walked out, and they're like, oh my God, he's actually swimming. And then Josh swam, and Joey swam, and Brad swam, and they're like, oh my God, he's swimming last. So yeah, it was a unique time, right? That would never happen these days, right? You know exactly what's happening. Your family knows exactly what's happening, but it's a different time.
You did good. Gold medal and great for SMU. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Berube, Southwest Conference Hall of Fame.
We are Rogue Media Sports.